So a lot of people in Los Angeles have a side hustle, and mine is that I am a dog sitter. I grew up with dogs, and I love dogs, and I learned a long time ago that it's much better not to own a dog of your own if it means that you can borrow somebody else's dog and go to their house and take care of that dog and then give it back and get paid for it. Awesome. Mine is a referral business, and in normal times, I would spend a good half year at other people's houses. So I'd go to their house and I would love their dogs and I would love their cats and their fish. And I tried really, really hard to love that one turtle. It wasn't easy, but I did it. So a lot of my dog sitting clients I have been with for years, to the point where we're almost family. I have been to Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas dinners, and I even went to the vet once to say goodbye to a pet, a dog that I loved just as much as their owners did. All of which is to say, I love dogs. There's not a lot that frazzles me about dogs. And I'm pretty responsible. I can give meds to a beagle with a careful poke over the back of the tongue. I can run miles and miles with Dalmatians. I am the master of a thoughtful tummy rub to a Maltipoo. I love dogs. So when longtime client Debbie called me up to say she had a gig for me with Bobby the Beagle, who I have dog sat for plenty of times before, and would it be all right if guest dog Ozzy was also there? I said, sure, no problem. Ozzy's family went on vacation somewhere, and they forgot to get a dog sitter in time, but Ozzy and Bobby the Beagle have known each other. They've been together plenty of times. They play with each other. They're fine. So this is going to work out fine. So I go over to meet Ozzy and get the rundown about how to take care of him. And Ozzy is a senior pup. He's basically, we'll say, 107 in dog years. And he kind of totters around and he looks at everything like it's the first time he's ever seen it. He's just like, a light, a table, wow. But again, he's like 107 in human years, so I'm gonna give him plenty of grace. So he comes up to me and he sniffs me and he gives me a couple of Ozzy licks on my hand and I feel accepted. So we're good to go. The day before I show up, I get a text from Debbie. And she says, sad news, Ozzy died last night. So it's just gonna be you and Bobby at the house. I'm like, so I immediately called Debbie because the death of any pet is traumatic regardless if it's yours or not. And so Debbie tells me what happened, which is, basically old age, 107 in human years. And Ozzy wasn't alone when he went. Debbie was right there and he had lived a good long life. So Debbie is a saint, and Ozzy's in a better place. But now we have a situation because Debbie has been trying to get a hold of Ozzy's family that is on vacation somewhere, and she hasn't been able to make a connection with them yet to tell them what's happened. And Debbie has to go on her trip herself. So what are we gonna do? Now, this is all going down in June of 2019, and temperatures are routinely hitting in the upper 90s, sometimes hitting triple digits because global warming, we're all gonna die. Ozzy has just beaten us to the punch. So Debbie and I kind of come to the same conclusion separately, and Debbie says at first, thank God. She says, well, I guess I could wrap them up and put them in the freezer in the garage. I know, but what other choice do we have? We can't bury Ozzy. Ozzy's family wants to come back and collect him and say goodbye in their own way, right? So we can't make that choice for him. So I'm like, yeah, sounds like a good idea. And then Debbie says, yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be fine. Clover's in there, and he's been fine. Clover? Who's Clover? Clover is the family's pet rabbit, and the bunny died a while back, and the family was going to bury the rabbit together next time they planted something in the garage. And life got in the way, and the girls went off to college, and oh my God, there's going to be a dead dog and a dead rabbit in the freezer in the garage when I go over to dog sit tomorrow. But it's okay, it's fine, I'm responsible, I don't get frazzled. I know what I'm doing, sort of. So I assure Debbie that everything's gonna be fine, and yes, I now have Ozzy's family's contact information, and I'm gonna do my best to make sure that I try to get a hold of Ozzy's family. He was on vacation somewhere. And Debbie can go on her trip, and everything's gonna be fine. So I arrived the next evening with my clothes, my laptop, and a giant bottle of bourbon. And I go out to the freezer in the garage. Bobby the Beagle is next to me, seemingly oblivious that her playmate of the past 3 days has just gone poof. Now, the freezer is one of those stand-up jobs, and so I creak the door open. There are 2 brown paper packages in the freezer, one on the right and one on the left, and I don't know which is which. And I am not going to peek inside to see who's who. So that means I have to text Debbie on her trip. Debbie, which one's which? Oh my gosh, you're right. Because you need to know, what if Ozzy's family shows up and they pick up the wrong pet to take home? Yeah, somebody's gonna get closure here. We just don't know who. So she tells me that Ozzy is on the left, Clover's on the right. Okay, great. I make a note of that on my phone because I just don't feel right scribbling their names on the outside of the package. So the whole weekend is spent with me writing and playing with Bobby the Beagle, drinking a lot of bourbon, and having nightmares about dead freezer pets that are clawing their way out of the freezer in the garage and breaking into the house and murdering Bobby and me in our sleep. But thankfully, that doesn't happen. And I can't get a hold of Ozzy's family. So Debbie actually comes back from her trip, and I hand over the reins to her, and I said, I tried. She says, don't worry about it. It's gonna get resolved somehow. This is true. So Ozzy's family does eventually come back from their trip. It turns out that they were traveling internationally, and the very first night that they landed, they were befelled by a nasty case of international food poisoning, which is why I am never going to Vietnam. But they got back, they collected Ozzy, and they went on their way. So I was having lunch with Debbie a couple of weeks ago, and we were swapping stories, and I was like, Debbie, have you buried Clover yet? She's like, oh no. Debbie, no. Debbie, I will help you. I will help you bury Clover. We have to give Clover closure, and you can't throw him away. We actually have to bury him. And she says, I know. At this point, he's been in the freezer longer than he's been alive. Clover the rabbit lived for 9 years. He has been in the freezer for 12. He has been in that freezer longer than I have been dog sitting for Debbie. I have gotten ice cream out of that freezer before. Salted caramel halo top on the shelf above, and I didn't know. Debbie looks at me. She says, you're gonna write about this, aren't you? I said, yeah, I kind of have to. But I promised Debbie that I would change the names of everyone involved, which I have, except for Clover. That really is that bunny's name. But yes, Debbie and I have a date. We are going to be burying Clover soon because I am responsible, and I try really, really hard not to get frazzled. Thank you, guys.